thing that we smile about and talk about that is a nice convenience. This is a magnetic wand. One of the things we'll discuss is that you have your jars washed, you have your rings and your lid in warm water to soften that little rubber band. And that warm water should be very hot. We used to just reach in there and grab it. Now we have a little magnet that will pick the lids up, allows you to not touch the bottom, to place it onto your jar, and then put your ring on. So this is a nice little device. Any magnet will do. A ruler can certainly be used to measure the height of your liquid in your jar. Do not try to lift jars with hot dog trimmers. It doesn't work. You need to have something that is safe for your jar as far as the glass is concerned, as well as enough lifting capacity. Now a funnel, some of you may have larger funnels at home. So in the case of hot water bath preserving of fruits, and some tomato sauces and fresh tomatoes, you don't have to have special equipment. However, when you come over here to low acid foods, you must have a pressure canner. And let me say this again, a pressure cooker is not a pressure canner. There are all kinds of canners. I brought 3 different ones to give you an idea. This is an old Dixie canner. This is one of the small ones, guys, from the canning station. It is very heavy. It still works. I used it Saturday. It has a vent that we allow to be used to get the air and the pressure out of the pot. Instead of having a ring, as we'll show you on these, it's metal to metal. So the lid sits on, and the wing nuts tighten this lid directly to the pot. It has a gauge which measures temperature and PSI, the pressure, so that you have a means of knowing exactly what temperature is inside the pot as well as the pressure. Yes?
You mentioned that those are pressure canners, not pressure cookers. What is the primary difference between the two?
A cooker is normally a little smaller in size. It might be close to this size, but it's usually a little bit smaller to this. And it's designated primarily for cooking of food items, raw food items, not in glass jars. So it doesn't have the capacity to put your jar in there, to add the water, to close the lid tightly. So you would not want to attempt to use the pressure cooker. Now, this is a mirror, and this one is Presto. Currently on the market there is an American canner that is beautiful. It's lightweight. This weighs a ton. This one's a little lighter, although it's still pretty heavy. But it's lightweight. It's very similar to the old Dixie canner in the fact that it's metal on metal. You don't have to worry about a gasket or making sure your gasket is in good condition and it doesn't have any cracks. It has the dial on top as well as the pressure vent. You see, this one only has a little, what we call petcock, or a dispersing pressure valve here that rotates back and forth. This one has a steam vent in the very center. It also has a gasket, and then it has a pressure regulator that goes on this pressure release, and this one jiggles once you reach the correct temperature and pressure inside the pot. This little device will start to jiggle, and that's when you adjust your temperature so that your temperature stays at 240, and this jiggles back and forth approximately 2 to 3 times a minute. We mentioned needing eyes to see most of the time. This is the only canning activity that requires you to be able to hear, because you do need to hear or be able to see that the the pressure walker is walking back and forth. This is a little different. This is the mirror. Also has the rubber basket that fits around the lid. It will have a weight on it that is measured in increments 5, 10, and 15 for your different pressures. Once again, it has a pressure release and your pressure control. Doesn't have a temperature on top. So this one is very key that once this starts rocking back and forth, that you are there at the stove, keeping an eye on your pot and slowing it down to allow it to produce the environment that is needed. Hot water bath, you cover your jar, 2 inches of water over the top. Pressure canner, there is 2 to 3 inches of water in the bottom. It's the steam, it is the pressure that is helping destroy those bacteria that generate those spores that then bring about the food poisoning or the botulism. So each of these are similar, and yet each of them work. Some of them are a little more easy. You cannot, and I'll say that again, you cannot take these lids off when the pressure is high within the pot. The locking mechanism on these 2 pots locks in these handles so that the only way you might be able to open this with a pressure still present on your dial or within your pot is to take a sledgehammer and beat the out of it. Number one, you don't want to ruin your pot. Number two, that's not the safe environment, and that's the bad publicity that pressure canning has received. People trying to rush the procedure and not letting the pot cool down. We know there's pressure in here because if we were to lift this off, the steam would just be rolling out of here. So we have specific guidelines. Each pot comes with an instruction book. Hang on to that. It gives you cooking times as well as it gives you basic information as to when and how long to release the pressure and how long you need to let your pot cool. Don't try to drop it or cool it down in ice water. What will happen is you'll warp the bottom of your pot, and then you'll have a pot that does not fit nicely on top of your stove. So there are specific guidelines on the handout about using both the hot water bath and the pressure canner. When I developed these slides in this presentation, the next to the last slide says, is it safe? And I was thinking about, is it safe to eat? And then last night as I was reviewing this particular briefing, I realized that most people are afraid of pressure canning. And it's safe when you know the right way, when you use the right equipment and the right guidelines, and when you can make sense out of what you're preserving, whether it be high acid or low acid. So understanding the fuss and the muss and all the extremes is as simple as understanding your equipment, knowing the safety guidelines. You're going to have a safe product. All of these jars have a metal lid on top. When that lid is indented, you no longer can push it down. These lids have that, I don't know whether you can hear it all the way back, but they have that little bit of ping, that little bit of give on the top of the lid. If you're in a grocery store and you're buying something in a glass jar, you really ought to make sure that that pressure is down, because that means it's been subjected to enough exterior pressure to force the air out of the jar and to seal this jar tight so that no bacteria or organisms can get into your product. So when we take these out of the hot water bath or the pressure canner, the kitchen sounds like a little ping pong room because they're going ping, ping, ping.